Hello and welcome back to the channel. So this camera here is my Panasonic Lumix G9 that I've been using for the last 5 years, and it's absolutely my baby. But there's a new guy in town. This is the Panasonic Lumix G9ii, and this is a camera that I've been looking forward to getting my hands on in such a long time. I've been given the camera to use for about a month, and I am so grateful and so excited. So I just want to thank everyone at Lumix UK for letting me get my hands on this camera. I'm just really happy about it. So a little bit of backstory. I've had the original G9, excuse the Olympus lens cap, I don't know where that came from. But yeah, I've had this original G9 for about 5 years. I had previously had the G7, the GX80, the G80, and then the G9. And like I said in so many other videos, love this camera. One major downside, the autofocus. Just couldn't get along with it for fast moving action and birds in flight. The reason for that is because it uses a 225 area contrast only detect autofocus system, and this one has got 779 autofocus points, and it uses phase detect, and it also has animal and eye detect as well. I am really excited to be using this camera. These are sort of my initial impressions of it. Don't worry, I will be making a kind of my review of this camera. It's not going to be as in depth of some of the videos that you might have seen from Emily over at the Micro 4 Nerds channel, or Robin Wong. They both made some really good reviews of this camera. I'm going to be approaching this camera as a wildlife photographer that's been using the G9 for a really good length of time. That's the unique angle that I'm coming from, and the reason I'm sort of using this is my wife said to me, you're so serious about your wildlife photography that go do your research and get what you want. Genuinely, that's what she said. So I looked at all of the major manufacturers. I looked at Sony, I looked at Nikon, I looked at Canon and Fuji, and there was always a compromise to be made. I could go out and buy a Sony A1, but then I'd have lost £6,000 before I'd even bought a lens. That's a big compromise to make. With Nikon, again, very expensive cameras, and I'm not convinced that full frame is the answer. With Canon, there was a compromise to be made. If I went APS-C, I'd need to be making compromises. If I went full frame, I wouldn't have enough length on, I wouldn't have enough focal length. So there wasn't a perfect system. Even with Olympus, there was nothing that was perfect, and I wanted something that would fit all of my needs, because I like shooting video and I like shooting photo. So it's quite important that I get a good blend of the two. I don't want to go around with 2 or 3 different cameras. I just want one camera to kind of do everything that I want to do. Now, just to go into some of the specs of this camera, it's quite an upgrade. I mean, this uses a 20 megapixel Micro Four Thirds sensor. The new one uses a 25 megapixel Micro Four Thirds sensor. The readout speed on this is, I don't know the exact figure, I think it's between 12 and 14 milliseconds. So it's not a stacked sensor like what's in the OM1, but it's got an incredibly fast readout speed. So the electronic shutter, apart from in the most ridiculous circumstances, is going to be absolutely fine. We've also got 20 frames a second electronic with full RAW. And then to top it off, we've actually also got 60 frames a second in full RAW as well. We've also got the pre-burst functions, and as for video, this can do cinema 4K at up to 120 frames a second with no crop, It also has ProRes recording codecs that you can record to an SSD. Basically, when it comes to video, this thing is, I mean, I know Panasonic recently launched the GH7. I think this thing is too advanced in terms of its video features for someone like me. So a GH7 at this point would be, it'd be like bringing a nuclear missile silo to a McDonald's straw blowing contest. My initial impressions when it comes to the autofocus is with the G9, let's just picture the scene. I've gone to Bempton Cliffs and I want to get pictures of flying birds. I might take 1,000 shots and think, oh, I hope enough are in focus of what I want. I hope there's something that's usable. From only using this a couple of days, that's gone from, if I look at my burst of 20 frames, let's zoom in 8 times and pick the one that's got the sharpest focus because they're all in focus. That is huge. That is absolutely huge. And rather than just using your typical single point autofocus, this has the animal eye and body detect, so I can compose my shots so much easier. It's so much less stressful. We just focus on our settings because I shoot fully manual. Focus on my settings and get the job done. And in only 2 days, and not even 2 full days of using this, I've got I finally have confidence to take pictures of birds in flight. So yeah, super excited about that. Only problem with having such a capable camera is I've now had to spend £130, even though this camera isn't mine. This will actually be useful in the G9 until I can get my hands on the 2. But yeah, this is a UHS-II SD card, a V90 card. I've only got a 16GB card, so I managed to fill that up in seconds. So yeah, 128 gig, bloody expensive, but once I pair that with another one in the future, we'll have everything we need to sort of take good shots on this. Let's go to the body and handling. The original G9, I don't think you could do much better than this. This has probably the best handling of any camera ever. I can't see any fault with this other than it's just my hands. I love the super sensitive shutter, but even though it's super sensitive, when I'm in certain positions and I touch the shutter, I start after a while introducing a bit of shake. And probably just because of how, you know, the grip is on this, it's not quite as deep, but it just feels better, and I don't have that same kind of shake from pushing the shutter down, even though it hasn't got that super sensitive shutter like the G9 had. I really do miss the top plate. That was extremely useful to see my settings. The way I shoot is that I kind of just gauge. I know that if I'm at 1,000th of a second, looking at the sort of ambient light levels, I can gauge, okay, I need to be at ISO 800. Now, it's not exact, I can't get it right all the time, but it was really useful to just quickly check my settings and go, well, the sun's gone in, I need to come up with the ISO. So that wasn't ideal, particularly when the reason it's gone is because we've got this dial here. But the issue is we've always had that dial just at the bottom on the original G9. So it's like we've just used valuable space for something that didn't really need to be there. That kind of bugs me a little bit, but I can live with it. I don't really like the aperture being here. I much prefer the G9's. You get a good amount of feedback from that, and I really like that. But again, the G80 had it, the G7 had it. I can definitely live with it. The viewfinder, I think the resolution is pretty much unchanged, which the G9 had the best viewfinder of pretty much any mirrorless camera when it came out. So keeping the same one when the Olympus has got, I think it's a 5 million pixel versus, well, I think it's about 3.68 in this. It's not ideal, but then this camera is a lot cheaper than the OM1. What I do like about the viewfinder is it pokes out that little bit more, so my big nose doesn't keep getting squished against the rear screen. That's really nice. My very first impression of picking it up was I hated the SD card door because I thought it felt really kind of cheap and sort of tacky. When you compare it to the G9, which has got the textured grip on it, it just feels more solid and well built. But then I realised that the only sort of where you've got this rubberized grip, that had actually come off in the past and I had to super glue it down. So I'm not going to have that problem with this, and actually that feels a lot nicer. So I've actually become a fan, and it's lighter, so I'm a bit of a fan of this door. That's quite nice. But as for the size, people have moaned about the size of the new G9 II. It's actually no bigger than the outgoing G9. It weighs exactly the same. It's just a little bit taller than the original G9, but it's not as wide and it's not as long. So I know it's only a few millimeters between the two, but when you work out the total area, they're exactly the same and the weight is exactly the same. And I tested that on a set of scales myself. I don't want to go too in depth because, like I said, I've only had the camera for a couple of days. Small little things like we have a new autofocus joystick, which can now go diagonal instead of just up and down, left and right. The issue is I don't find it very accurate. Yes, you can go places a lot quicker, but then it's not as accurate. So that could just be me taking a bit of time to get used to it, but initially that's a bit annoying. Really nice feeling camera in the hand, and like I said, it reminds me of kind of full frame Sony cameras. It just has it looks amazing. When this camera came out, I didn't think you could make a camera look any better than this, but it turns out you can. And obviously this shares the same body with the full frame Lumix S5 II. So although I cannot use my original G9 batteries in this camera, if you've got an S5 II, you can use the batteries from that, which is really, really good. What I'll do now is just leave you my very first shots that I've got with this camera. I'll drop a few video clips in as well. I'm going to be doing a lot of testing just from the perspectives of a wildlife photographer over the next sort of coming days and weeks. And yeah, I'm going to be kind of laser focused on that, so I don't think there's going to be a huge amount of videos. If you could let me know in the comments what you would like to know about this camera. If I can answer the question now, that would be brilliant. But yeah, drop what you want to see. When I sort of give you my full breakdown on this camera, tell me what you want to know about it, and I will do my best to get that done. So yes, thank you very much for watching this video. Thank you to Joey for lending me his table that he made with Grandad. If you've enjoyed this content, please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. That'll mean that you'll be alerted every time I put out a new video. If you've enjoyed it, please hit the like button. And like I said, please leave your comments and perhaps look at the full description, and that'll go through all the kit and equipment that I use, which might be helpful for you and obviously help support me. You can also go to my buy a coffee and you can buy me a coffee if you find these videos useful or helpful. So yes, I can't wait to get out and do more shooting with this guy. Till next time.